तस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us now pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou abidest in all, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms. Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all. Thou art existence, knowledge and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Let us have the opening song. Today is the blessed birth anniversary of one of the illustrious direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Trigunatitananda, who actually had come to America and was head of the San Francisco Vedanta Society in San Francisco, and died here in California. So, on the birthdays of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, we chant one song that actually adores all the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. That is why the title of the song is Salutations to the Disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. It will be displayed on the screen and you may join in singing.
Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvano Mangala. Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvano Mangala. Jaya Mata Shama Shuta Oti Niramalo. Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvano Mangala. Jaya Vivekananda Toramadayala. Prabhu Ramano Shashuta Jaya Shri Rakhalo. Jaya Premananda Prema Maya Kalebara. Jaya Shivananda Jaya Leela Shahajara. Yogi Yogananda Jaya Nitya Niranjana Jaya Shashi Guru Pade Gata Tanumana Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvana Mangala Shiva Para Yogi Vara Adbhutayananda Abhedayananda Jaya Gata Mohabandha Yogarata Tyaga Brata Turiya Khyata Sharata Shudhira Shanta Jana Gananatha Jibe Shiva Shiva Brata Gangadhara Mera Jaya Shri Vijnanananda Prashanta Gambhira Pradhana Gopala Matri Shiva Parayana Sharada Sharada Pade Gata Pranamana Jaya Jaya Bhuvana Mangala Balaka Charitra Jaya Shubodha Sharala Nagavara Tyagavira Viveka Shambhala Kathamrita Burishana Gaura Jaladhara Girisha Bhairava Jaya Vishwashaya Kara Ramakrishna Dasha Dasha Jaya Shabakara Ramakrishna Leela Sthana Jaya Varambara Ramakrishna Nama Jaya Shravana Mangala Bhakta Vanchita Jaya Charana Kamala Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvana Mangala Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna Bhuvana Mangala
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace. Today we shall discuss about what are the norms that Vedanta puts forth before us about the moral living, and how they have been expounded by Swami Vivekananda while discussing various contemporary philosophies about it. So, morality, as we see, is a special human trait. It is, we see that human beings, they are moral or immoral. About other creatures, we do not consider that criterion or hold them accountable from that angle. It is, if a dog bites somebody, then the owner of the dog is considered responsible, not the dog itself. Because dog doesn't have a moral sense, as we assume, that they go by the instinctive behavior, whatever is just instinctively programmed in them, they will just go accordingly, and therefore they cannot commit any sin, they cannot have any moral virtues either. It is just an auto-programmed things. So therefore morality is for human beings and how to judge moral behavior has been a topic of great very animated discussions amongst philosophers since the word philosophy is in existence. What should determine whether the behavior of a person is moral or not moral? And many standards come into picture that what should be called moral. A problem does come when whatever we think as moral, we tend to universalize it, we tend to make it obligatory, compulsory for everyone. Something that I see as moral, it becomes my tendency automatically to, see that everybody behaves like this if they are to be moral. If somebody does not observe it, then I think that it is immoral. There has been, very nice discussion by a well-known psychologist on this, Steven Pinker, his name. So, he is a psychologist at MIT, and in one of his essays or books, he mentions this, that when we go by our specific likings, when the choice is made on the basis of liking, we do not tend to universalize it. It is my choice, it is your choice, whatever, you like to eat this kind of bread, I like to eat that kind of bread. You love pizza, I like pasta. Nobody, takes up enmity on that count. That we don't never hear that somebody says, oh, you people who like pasta should be eliminated from this. No, it is, we do not associate any moral clingings to that. But if I make certain choices on the moral basis, then there is the tendency to universalize that. Like if I think that it is wrong to kill animals for any reason, and that is why everybody has to be vegetarian, then it becomes a moral issue. If somebody is not vegetarian, then that person is not moral. That is how many tend to look like, because it is a choice based not on liking. The person might be liking non-vegetarian food, but has made a choice that no, I will be vegetarian because that is moral. And then that person preaches it. That person tells it to everybody, starts a society, a vegetarian society, and that is taken up as a moral plank, that if you have to lead a moral life, then you have to be vegetarian. This is a common example, friends. When something is taken up as a moral issue, then we take it up like that. Same thing goes with our political leanings as well. People have different choices, Sometimes those who are not so politically tied to one party or one ideology, they do not make it a moral issue. But that somebody, they can concede that somebody belonging to another party can also be moral. It is the morality is not connected to only one party as such. But if we cling to it as a moral thing, then obviously it is how can a person belonging to other party be moral? I was talking to one person that will you vote that person is in the other party that you do not like, is in the other party, but suppose that person is a very good person from the other party, will you vote that person? And then she questioned the validity of this question. If a person is good, then why will he belong to that bad party? It is not possible. So, when we have that choice connected or tied to morality, then, yes, it is bad. Yes, supporting our club, it is okay, but we do not make that as a moral issue, you see. So, yes, you have to, but if somebody is fanatic, and if you are not supporting patriots, and living in New England, you are immoral. It is, obvious it is. So, it is like that. That when I remember a new dean at UMass was being introduced. This was, of course, being told all in jest. And then he was being introduced by another professor. And the professor said, hey, you can go to this new dean for any problem, whatever you want. And he is so helpful. He will solve all your problems. He is very knowledgeable, very helpful. But make sure he is a die-hard Red Sox fan. And so if you put on a Yankee jersey and go to him, then your life can be in danger. So it is, somebody could be, because when it is tied not just to likings, but to the moral leanings, then one tends to universalize it. That is how moral issues, they tend to become universal. Also, the origin of morality, and that is where religion gets associated with morality. That what is moral when we go deep into it, and that is what Vedanta does, goes very deep into the very basis of morality. And we can see this as the idea of moral instinct in us. It is that we somehow sense the difference between what is and what should be. We sense a gap between this. This is how it should be, and this is how it is. And moral behavior is that which tends to bridge that gap, going from what is to what should be. That constitutes a moral behavior. Something that tells us that this is right, this is not right. So, that which makes us therefore do the right thing, that is a moral behavior. That which does not make me do that, or that which makes me do bad thing, that is immoral behavior. So, with this, then comes that what should be. What should be. And then this leads to the idea that what is the goal of mankind? What should be the goal of our life? This thought arises because that is the basis on which we can decide what is right and what is wrong. This may sound a little far-fetched for many, but if you look a little deeper, you can understand this, that what has it got to do? Right is right is not right. No, friends, it is not as simple as it sounds. It is, you have to have a goal in life. And then only you can decide what is right or not right. Without a goal, a standard, some fixed point where you want to go, you cannot really decide whether your journey is proceeding in the right direction or not in the right direction. And if we are not clear about it, then we certainly do not know whether my actions are right or not right. This is the central idea that comes in Vedanta, that we need to have determined what is right and what is not right. And to determine that, we need to know that what is the ultimate goal, where I want to go, because that alone can enable us to show what is right and what is not right. It is, as I mentioned earlier, we try to make that which we consider as moral to be universal. But we see that across the various cultures, different types of communities, the different ideals are considered to be the moral norms. That, well, in certain countries, to put on clothing in a certain way is considered immoral. In some other places, that is considered perfectly moral. Or in fact, that is if you are moral, you should put on such clothes. It is, not too long ago, one older gentleman was arrested for putting on that Indian dhoti and walking on the street in California. It was considered indecent, clothing, and so was arrested. Now that man was perplexed. Why? It is a perfectly nice clothing. Why am I being arrested for that? But that is how it is. The standards are made that this is how the moral behavior is. So if we just go by externals, we will see so many contradictions. Like polygamy, for example, is considered immoral in this society for certain reasons. But then there have been societies when it was considered to be perfectly good. In fact, it was considered moral. The reason was the number of men was less. The number of women in that society far outnumbered the number of men. In many earlier societies, men would often go for wars. The wars were rampant, and so many men would get killed, and so it was a social necessity that many women therefore have to just have one man amongst them. So therefore that became a necessity, that became a perfectly moral thing. In some parts, the number of men outnumber the women in a big way. And therefore, the polyandry is considered very, moral, very good, very correct. It is like that. It is some parts in Kerala and in northeast India and maybe many other places it's like that. And in fact, Swami Vivekananda had this conversation in Tibet. It is a very interesting conversation. That he saw that in that community there was no institution of marriage at all. And he therefore spoke to one leader in that community, don't you think it is immoral that men, women just living and, mixing with anybody as such, there is no rule as such, no idea of fidelity, isn't it immoral? And what his reply, that he said opened my eyes, that yes, there are different customs. He said, I don't get, why do you call it immoral? Isn't the morality lies in sharing, isn't it? Morality is, why should I hold on to somebody as my own commodity? And that applies to person also. Why should I consider? And Swami Vivekananda had no answer to that actually. Yes, the first statement that he made sounds correct. That a norm of morality is willingness to share, not hoarding something as mine. Willingness to share. And so from that idea, this is quite moral. So, therefore, it then comes to this, that what is then the principle on which morality hinges. The idea that therefore gradually emerged in the Vedantic thought is that which takes you towards your goal of life, that is moral. But same act may not be moral for other person. One has to be very careful in that matter. And this is very different from the utilitarian standards or even the Kantian, what he calls as the universal morals of or categorical imperatives. So, it is here you see the morality, something that takes me towards the ideal may not be that which takes another person also to the same ideal. The ideal is same for all. And here John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism and Vedanta, in essence, they have the same ideal. In fact, no human being will dispute about that after all the goal is to have happiness. All the different ideas and ideals, they boil down to this, that we all seek happiness. And so that gives me happiness and freedom from pain. That is moral. It is. And then you see the same thing for others also. And so, the utilitarianism, John Stuart Mill gave this his famous book, Utilitarianism, in about 1860. Kant, about 100 years before that, had given this idea that the standards of good and not good, right and wrong, have to be universal imperatives. And it is since this idea of universal imperatives has gone deep into the Western psyche, along with also many these ideas proclaimed based on Aristotle. Kant was a very staunch adherent to Aristotle. So, and all the Christian doctrines after this Thomas Aquinas have been based on Aristotelian philosophy. So they bring about this idea that this has to be universal. If something is right for somebody, it has to be right for all. So right for all, and therefore in Western society it is very difficult to tell that no, the moral standards are different for different persons. So it is, don't you consider it wrong? Well, for some it is wrong. This is very difficult to be appreciated here. Well, right is right, wrong is wrong. No, it is not so simple. Something can be right for you, may not be right for everybody. Somebody brought me some food to eat, and I said, well, it is, I don't tolerate it. No, Swami, it is good. It is good for you. Well, I can take a little bit. No, take more, it is good for you. Well, it is good, no doubt. I don't dispute its goodness, but it is not as good as you think for me. So, it is not advisable, I tell, if the food that I eat, if I give you, would you consider it good? It does good to me, but I dispute whether it will be, I don't think it will do good to you. So it is, I eat lot of hot chilies. So, hey, would you take some? And then people politely but firmly refuse. No, that's not for me. So it is. So it is like that. Everything that is the good and not good is very relative. So Vedanta accepts this idea and therefore does not support the view of utilitarianism. That because utilitarianism is that which, as John Stuart Mill tells, that it determines on the basis of the consequence, whether something is good or not should be determined by the consequence. And if the consequence is good, then the act should be considered good. But then how to consider that it is good? Well, then he faced a big problem. Because the acts are good for some time, then not good later on, the bad effects come into picture, like certain use of certain fertilizers. Initially they do give bumper crop, but then there are the later consequences which are not so good. They spoil the soil and so forth. And so, how to determine then that something is good? So he brought out a principle or a standard which became certainly very controversial, which is the maximum happiness to maximum people. Let us put that as the standard. Maximum happiness to maximum number of people. Apparently, it was okay. Suppose we have to go just statistically, but who is to determine who are the maximum number of people? It is, therefore, this flaw had been detected by Vedanta and other religious systems long back, and therefore the moral value of an action was not connected with the consequences as such, but the intentions. There is no action. If you read Bhagavad Gita or Swami Vivekananda's book Karma Yoga, a very beautiful book, Karma Yoga, he shows through a lot of evidence that there is no action that can bring just good for everyone. If an action does good to some, it is sure to do bad to some others. There is nothing like that, an action that will do good uniformly to everyone. It is even the ideas like vegetarianism and such, they tend to do a lot of bad. I many times alluded to a nice cartoon that I had seen, that the vegetarianism, and so therefore all vegetables, they had called a conference, and the cartoon showed a big pumpkin as the chairman of that conference, and that big pumpkin was calling forth, we must stoutly oppose this two-pronged attack of human beings. This two-pronged attack. Firstly, the human beings want to eat us and also spare the animals which eat us. A double-pronged attack. So it is maybe it spares some animal but does not spare the life in vegetables. So how to decide that it is doing good to everybody? So therefore, Bhagavad Gita tells that it is the intention that is important. If it is done with the intention to do good, and that should be considered as moral. And again the question is, why? This is again a special trait of human beings. They ask why. And that is actually how human beings keep on learning more and more. This question, why this happens? Why do the rains fall? Why do we see the alternating sunrise, sunset, day and night? Why? And then we therefore try to find answers and so forth. So why should I do good to others? This is a very valid question, that maybe it is doing good to others, but if suppose you say happiness is the goal, and if I can derive happiness by killing somebody, why should I not do it? Will you call that as a moral act? According to your definition, that striving for happiness is moral. So if my happiness lies in killing somebody, then that also should be counted as a moral act. Why should I be kind to others? We all know that it is good, but then there is the question, why? And Vedanta goes deep into this root cause of why do we feel like that? And the reason is that we all want the perfect happiness, no doubt. There is this, here Mill and Vedanta, they don't differ much, that we all want a pain-free and happiness-filled life. Now the difference begins, that Vedanta says, let us find the source of happiness. To get happiness, we need to find the source of happiness. Let us search for that. And with an intense search, one discovers that happiness does not lie in getting an object. That object which we think will give us happiness. By observation we see that the same object can give happiness to me for some time, not all the time. Also, that very object could be painful to me at other times, could be painful to others at this very time. So, the conclusion that one can reach, and Vedanta wants to proceed very logically, that if that is the case, that means the objects do not themselves contain happiness. So where does the happiness lie? Where do I feel the sensation of happiness? And then another observation that all can see, that happiness always comes from within. Happiness, even when you are, say, getting happiness while eating ice cream, you do not feel the sensation coming from ice cream as such, but you get it from inside. So, therefore, the objects may change, but the source of happiness is within us, our true self. That is the source of happiness. And that is why it also, therefore, ties together with other ideas and ideals that human beings have. Like we want love, just as our happiness is connected with love also. And therefore, what is this idea of love? It is oneness. And so we see that love is in this feeling of oneness. I and my beloved, they are one. And that ties with the idea of pleasure as well. Oneness. Like ice cream there and I here, no happiness. When I and ice cream become one, no separate ice cream left, then hey, yeah. So it is like that. So therefore, the central idea that Vedantists discovered is that this whole universe, there is no separateness at all. This separateness is an illusion. And because of this separateness, that we suffer. And therefore, that which increases this separation is immoral, whereas that which reduces this separation is moral. And then we see what is the cause of this separation. And then Vedanta goes one more step forward. And it requires, let me tell you, it requires daring to accept this conclusion. Intellectually, it is inescapable. But then it requires courage to accept and implement that which we intellectually see as right. And that is this separate sense of individuality, this I and world, this idea, I am this and the others are that. That is the problem. That is the basis of all ignorance, is this separate I, ego. And therefore, as we see that the annihilation of ego is the goal of spiritual or religious thought. Let us annihilate that ego, and you can find that, as Swami Vivekananda beautifully points it out, as the basis on which all ethical and moral thought stands. And you can see that as Swami Vivekananda mentions, that the basis of all morality is not I, but you. You put yourself behind and let others go ahead of you. That is morality. That is what we see. Even it is taught in the good manners that if there is somebody or many people going towards the same place, and then there is one gate, then a person says, okay, you go first, I'll go after you. You first, I will go after you. So it is, of course, not in that sense that it was told by some a man, when they were in a forest and suddenly they saw a tiger, and then he told the wife, ladies first. It is ladies first. That is not a very good, you won't agree that it is a moral act, but it is, but otherwise putting others ahead of you, that is the idea in all moral these philosophies. Let me be deprived, let myself be deprived, but you get it before me. So that is considered moral and ethical. Why so? Because then that gives blow to this ego. And as this ego, because of such actions, goes on reducing. I am, friends, fast forwarding. We don't have time to elaborate on each and every thought in this. But the more this ego gets blows, then we start seeing the universality. And gradually we start seeing that the same I is in everyone. The theistics will express it as the same God is in everyone. Although we have different bodies, yet this self in all is identical. There is no difference in this self. So that is how the moral behavior is inspired from. This idea that here and there the reality is same. As Bhagavad Gita expresses it, that Ishvaras sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati, that God alone, Ishvara, sarva bhutanam, in all beings, that God alone is staying as their self. And thus it is when one recognizes that, then you see you can never act immorally to yourself. At least that is not the intention at all. You will always try to do good to what you consider as yourself. But as you see the same you in all other beings, it will translate into, therefore, automatically doing what is best to others as well. And thus you see the real moral behavior. I will conclude by quoting a paragraph from Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda. This is a passage that comes in Jnana Yoga. Utilitarian standards cannot explain the ethical relations of men, for, in the first place, we cannot derive any ethical laws from considerations of utility. Without the supernatural sanction as it is called, or the perception of the superconscious as I prefer to term it, there can be no ethics. Without the struggle towards the infinite, there can be no ideal. Any system that wants to bind men down to the limits of their own societies is not able to find an explanation for the ethical laws of mankind. The utilitarian wants us to give up the struggle after the infinite, the reaching out for supersenses, as impracticable and absurd, and in the same breath asks us to take up ethics and do good to society. Why should we do good? Doing good is a secondary consideration. We must have an ideal. Ethics itself is not the end, but the means to the end. If the end is not there, why should we be ethical? Why should I do good to other men and not injure them? If happiness is the goal of mankind, why should I not make myself happy and others unhappy? What prevents me? In the second place, the basis of utility is too narrow. All the current social forms and methods are derived from society as it exists. But what right has the utilitarian to assume that society is eternal? Society did not exist ages ago, possibly will not exist ages hence. Most probably, it is one of the passing stages through which we are going towards a higher evolution. And any law that is derived from society alone cannot be eternal, cannot cover the whole ground of man's nature. I complete the quote here. So, therefore, we have to dwell deeper into understanding where from this idea springs in us that about ethical behavior. What should be the moral behavior? Why should we have the ethical behavior? Ethics and religion cannot be really separated. Many in the contemporary society and even earlier also said that religion is unnecessary, but ethics and morality, they are necessary for the society. But it is another way of saying that it is, the water is necessary for us, but the moisture is not necessary. It is, you are denying the very source of water. The ethics and religion, it is almost impossible to separate them, because that removes the ration debtor, the reason for ethics, religion or spiritual unity of mankind. That alone provides the rational basis for ethics, because the two have always been so closely connected. I remember in the schools in India, because of this, we should not teach religion in the schools. What was done in many schools was religion is not taught because it is not allowed by the government, this thing. No religion should be taught in schools. We cannot indoctrinate the students into any religious belief. So there used to be moral science classes to us. The same thing would be taught, but instead of calling it a religion class, it would be called a moral science class. So, because of the close connection between them that happens. So, friends, let us understand and discover our ideal of life, and then we will know how to address our moral concerns. We will be then very broad in our outlook. We can understand that something can be very moral for likes of me, but the same act may not be considered moral by other people, and that is all right too. So, I will conclude here, and we shall meditate for 30 seconds. Then if you have any questions, you can come forward to ask. Yes, please. Yes, Jim? Oh, there is other Jim also. Okay.
I like Immanuel Kant's interpretation of universal law for defining morality. However, I see a problem because I'm not sure it can work that way. And if I accept what you say, where you can't have separation, and you are, but yet you make a decision based upon what's good for, I think you used the example of society, then that universal law that Immanuel Kant refers to is constantly changing, because what's good today is not maybe 10 years from now, 100, 1,000 years from now. So
Yeah.
universal because it's always
Changing. Yeah.
Can you address that?
Oh, that is why the Kant philosophy, that part of it, faced lot of challenges. That what is moral, as you said, now it may be moral, 10 years hence it may not be moral. It may be moral in Germany where Kant lived, may not be moral in, say, England. It is therefore the Kant's philosophy, although it is he has taken lot of pains to prove it as a philosophical truth. Many showed that it is untenable, and there are two of these very famous treatises of Immanuel Kant. One is that the Critic of Pure Reason, and then that is more or less very well accepted, Critic of Pure Reason. And then it posed a problem that, well, if Critic of Pure Reason kind of concludes that you cannot know the things as they are, you only know what you perceive through the apparatus of your mind. And so what you ultimately succeed in knowing is X plus mind. X always remains unknown and unknowable. Now, with this conclusion, it became now a problem then how to address that what is right and what is not right. If it is left to the perception of everybody, then whatever you think is right, whatever I think is right. So Kant did not like that idea, and therefore he wrote another treatise that was titled Critic of Practical Reason. First was Critic of Pure Reason, and then the Critic of Practical Reason, which kind of opened a can of worms, as it were. So it is, when you want to make the things practical, so many difficulties come. And so therefore, those ideas were not taken up. In fact, lot of flaws were shown in the very arguments. It is also Kant tried to make things sound very scientific and mathematical. But the discoveries in science and mathematics after Kant, that was in 1700s, then those assumptions were just all taken out. They were not really the science or mathematics that is valid anymore. And so that kind of undercuts the very foundation of Kant's arguments also. Yes.
So what I'm perceiving is that even though to myself, I don't want morality to be mores and norms of any given group because that doesn't satisfy the pure meaning. But I'm probably hearing you wrong, but I hear you saying that Vedanta addresses this by just using that philosophy almost, even though it's going to change over time.
No, Vedanta therefore does not use that Kant's philosophy. Vedanta therefore says that the moral action is that which takes you towards ideal, and an action that can take this gym to ideal may be completely opposite to what this other gym takes to the ideal. So therefore, it is not in action nor in the social general consequences of it, but the intention that that person has, that therefore provides the moral value of it. It is, and therefore people say sometimes, it is just to cover their mistakes or follies. Don't judge me by my actions, judge me by my intentions. It is, now who is to know what intentions are? But that is what Vedanta also says, that it is the intention, a sincere intention, that is the judge of the moral valuation, that how much your particular action has the moral value. Yes, Abhijit?
So now if our goal is spiritual, right? The end is spiritual. And we define morality as whatever is conducive to that is moral. So being moral, automatically you're spiritual. All you have to be is moral, and that will, spirituality will just, blossom. So
Perfectly agreed.
So morality is spirituality.
Yes, it is in the ultimate result of it. The two words are given differently because morality is more of the practical side of it, that what you should be doing. And therefore, there are these two set of disciplines mentioned in Vedanta, yama, niyama. One is yama, that you should be telling the truth, you should be not stealing anybody's property, and so forth. So all these are, you should not be injuring other creatures. So being compassionate to other creatures and all that, these are the norms by which then you can advance to your goal. So that is how the two at the end become identical. That spirituality therefore can be posited as the goal and morality as the means. Did you raise the hand? Somebody here raised the hand? No. Okay, yes, Vinay.
I was going to ask you, what is your favorite animal?
My favorite animal? Well, human being. Yes, Carol?
Is there a place where to thine own self be true? To thine own self be true. I find that most of the time we rationalize with the intellect what it is we want to do, and we call it moral. It's a good intention. Vivekananda wrote his book with a good intention. He does his book with good intention, which has been rationalized in their intellect. And so I do wonder if to thine own self be true doesn't really take top drawer, so to speak, the top shelf, because I feel practically all the time.
Yes, It is, if we have the right intention and if we sincerely try to mold our life accordingly, then it will take us to the goal. It is very much like, driving to some place. If you do not have intention to go to that place, then naturally you will not take the trouble of driving there. If you have the intention to go there, then you will automatically strive to find the right path to go there. You will consult maps, you go to Google Maps, you will also get a GPS, or on the phone you will find how to go there, and thus you will get there. Even if you make some mistakes, you will come back on the proper track, and thus you will get there. But the mistake we make is that you took some left, some right, some left, some right, some straight. Now, if somebody is traveling to the same place from some other point, then that person's left, right, directions, everything is going to be different. So, although the goal is same, you cannot impose that the same particular actions will have to be taken up, because they will be different. So, therefore, it does practically take you to the highest shelf, no doubt about it. It is, if we strive, then certainly we advance. It is a different process, of course, that at every point the things become different, because as the ego starts reducing, it is gradually you do not even see that this particular person is progressing, because that person as such is getting dissolved into the universal self. So, therefore, the terminology will change. It will be different. I suggest you please read a very small poem by Swami Vivekananda, the Song of Samadhi. It is a very short poem, but very sublime. So you will see how one evolves in that direction by holding on to this principle of right intention. Yes, Barbara, you wanted to make a comment?
Just a question, actually, just a short question. Will you someday be talking here, maybe you have already in the past, about self-forgiveness and forgiveness in terms of meeting your goals of having right?
Yeah, correct, yes. It is, we have spoken about that a few times with different title, and that topic does come, that forgiveness is an important moral quality. I was mentioning in Vedanta that yama, niyama, one of them say forgiveness, because it is, what it means is, just as you will tend to get forgiveness for you, so show that forgiveness to others as well. And surely it becomes a problem for those who do not forgive others. Although they like themselves to be forgiven, the very act of not forgiving others makes them very, very difficult to forgive themselves. They keep on carrying the guilt. They lead a very difficult life because they are not able to forgive themselves. There is an idea of being unforgivable to oneself, means one wants to be very strict. If I did wrong, I should not just let it pass, because then I will not correct myself. So in that sense, yes, one should not forgive oneself. But what that means is taking corrective measures, not like carrying the guilt, you see. So, yes. So, you wanted to ask something? Harsha? Okay. So, let us have the offertory by Vishwanath. Then I will tell you quickly about the upcoming programs. Coming Sunday, the topic of discussion is making of Swami Vivekananda. In this month of January, we had the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, and so most of the topics are glued to Swami Vivekananda, connected with Swami Vivekananda. So, making of Swami Vivekananda, next Sunday topic, and the oration will be given by Abhijit Sarkar, a very good orator. I have heard his orations, and he speaks so well and does lot of thorough study. So that will be the oration next Sunday. The other Tuesday and Friday classes at 7:30 p.m. they will go on as usual. Tuesday the topic is Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play, and on Fridays the topic is Yoga of Knowledge, Jnana Yoga. And well, that's about it. We will conclude with the closing prayers. After that there will be Arati, and you are all invited to join the soup supper in the basement.
And Swamiji, the reading?
Oh yes, after the soup supper at 7 o'clock, there will be a little reading of the biography, a very short biographical sketch of Swami Trigunatītānanda, and then meditation. So you are invited to join that also. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazd of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Frank